Okay, another question on arrowheads that I get is what is the most common type or material for arrowheads in North America? Because I want to stock up on what is the most common type or whatever. I don't know why I get that question, but I have a feeling that they're trying to make a set and they want to know the proportions. How many stone arrowheads do I have in my set compared to the bones or other materials? Uh, from the archaeological record, the number one material for arrowheads is a simple wooden sharpened point, either foreshaft or self shaft, solid shaft for an arrow, either that or a foreshafted arrow with a wooden point of either a more dense wood or a wood that's easily heat treated to become hard. There are certain woods that respond to heat treatment to become very hard. That sort of thing. Wood is the number one arrowhead material throughout all times in all areas. Number two is bone. Okay. Now, I'm going to include antler with that too. Antler tines or tips. Those were common as well. And especially the antler tines. You just cut off the tip and then grind out the pith and then put it on a shaft. And then grind down the tine point and you have an arrowhead. Okay? And then bone, you would have to either score the bone, cut it apart, or break it and then shape it. It's a little more involved, but it's still, those three are easier than stone. So wood, bone, and antler are easier to make than the stone as far as overall time. Now, when you get into the stone, which is next, the next one is stone, number 4. So once you get into the stone and get used to working stone, it actually is easier to knap a stone arrowhead than to create one out of bone, for instance. Because bone requires a lot of grinding and a lot of time, and as far as drying the bone out and selecting the types of bones you want to use and that sort of thing. Wood is also always going to be the easiest. But there's a controversy on what's easier in time-wise, bone or stone. And I think stone is actually easier. Once you have a supply of stone and know where to get it, it's easier than bone. But you always have bone available. You're always going to have antler available too, just sheds every year and such. So that's an easier material to get a hold of. Now there are other materials, shell. I've seen sandstone and limestone arrowheads that have been ground to shape, slate, alligator gar scales. In some areas, slate is the predominant material for stone arrowheads, like in the Northeast. But I've seen slate arrowheads in different areas. Wherever they had slate, they would use it. In the archaeological record, there's samples. Now, obsidian was used wherever it was found. No matter what, they would always use obsidian. They wouldn't bypass it. In some areas, even if there was a knappable stone, they wouldn't always use it. They would pick a certain type of stone instead of this type of stone. So you see some quarries where they're exhausted right next, well, not right next to, but near quarries that have plenty of other types of stone. Okay, but as far as obsidian, that was always used, no matter what. So yeah, if you're going to try to duplicate an arrow from your area, find out what's available. If obsidian is in your area, then that's what they would use. If you don't have anything in your area for knapping, they use bone and wood or slate. Okay, and sometimes seashell and teeth, shark teeth, alligator gar scales, and that sort of thing. I've heard that sometimes claws and predators' canines were used for arrowheads. I can't verify that. As far as seeing an actual artifact with either a tooth or a claw on the tip, like an arrow with that on the tip, I haven't seen one. So yeah, I would just stick with wood. Most of the arrows in your quiver should be wood tipped for target practice at least, and then a couple bone and a couple stone, and then you should be fine. Okay.